Up until today, we don't know exactly why Abu Mazen said no to the generous offer by Israeli Prime Minister at that time, Olmert. He basically gave them everything that he wanted. They already agreed on it, and they were talking for 2 years, meeting 36 times, eye to eye, 101, mano mano, for 36 times. They already agreed on everything, and in the end, when the chips were on the table, Abu Mazen said no, and I believe, and that the reason for that is because God intervened and prevented that from happening, because God doesn't want the Palestinian state. In the picture, you can see that this is on the left side. This is Prime Minister of Israel at that time, 2006, 2008. Ehud Olmert. On the right side, you can see what's his name, and the chairman of the Palestinian Authority, Abu Mazen, also called Mahmoud Abbas. He became the leader of the PA, the Palestinian Authority, ruling Judea and Samaria after Yasser Arafat, the cocksucker, died. He's a known Holocaust denier and a Nazi. So Ehud Olmert became the Prime Minister of Israel in about 2006 after Israeli Prime Minister Ariel Sharon got a stroke. Now, by the way, he got a stroke right after he pulled out of Gaza. He got a punishment from God. He got a stroke. Yes. Oh, yes. He got a stroke. Everybody in Israel, everyone in Israel knows that this is a punishment from God, because he took all those Jews out of Gaza. He kicked them out, threw them to the street, beat them, and arrested them if they protest. For what? For what? For absolutely nothing. It was completely illegal and unjust, and he was punished for that. Now, so he became the Prime Minister of Israel, and he was a terrible Prime Minister, but surprisingly, he actually had a very big coalition. He had about 78 people in his coalition, 78 out of 120 people. Because there was the Likud party, there was the Labour Party, and there was the Kadima Party. Kadima Party was established by Ariel Sharon after the Likud, headed by Benjamin Netanyahu, pulled up from the government of Ariel Sharon. Basically, all the people that were fired by Ariel Sharon because they opposed the withdrawal from Gaza. So and there was an election. There was Kadima, there was Labour, there was the extreme left, there were the Arabs, and also there were the Old Orthodox. So he had a very big coalition, and I can tell you that during that specific time of talks between Ehud Olmert to Abu Mazen, the leader of the Palestinian Authority, they didn't talk about it too much in the media. The Israeli media just really very, very laconically. So most of the Israeli public was not aware at that specific time that Olmert is actually meeting with. He's been meeting with Abu Mazen once in 2 weeks. He actually met him about 36 times. Each time it's a one-on-one conversation, and we were completely unaware actually that he was actually making some very serious and generous offer to the Palestinian Authority to make peace. And none of this was presented to the people. But the thing is that what was presented to the people, which was completely out of the question, was actually that after the withdrawal from Gaza, actually Olmert is planning to withdraw from Judea and Samaria with exchange of nothing. So just like Gaza, basically putting out the Jews by force from their homes in exchange for absolutely nothing. So he was actually planning to do the same thing in Judea and Samaria, and it was called Itkansut. And the idea in the left-wing media, and which was actually the mainstream media, was, why don't you want a Jewish and democratic state? How can you have a democratic state but also ruling Judea and Samaria? And you're gonna have to give up on those territories anyhow for peace, So this idea was promoted on the same time, and basically what the government was actually doing was hardly even discussed in the public. So me, as a right-winger at that time, I was completely unaware that the prime minister is actually talking to Abu Mazen, and is making a lot of offers. So it was actually kept on the lead. Now you need to understand that the Israeli right was beaten really harsh after the withdrawal from Gaza. People were arrested. Some people they were still in jail because they protest against the withdrawal from Gaza. Still in 2006, 2007, people were still in trial because in 2005 they protested. People were struggling, a lot of people, if they were right wing, they were singled outed by co-workers. It wasn't easy, and then there was in 2007 something, and there was in 2006 in August, there was the second Lebanon war, which it was a complete disaster. Basically Hezbollah in the north in Lebanon, they abducted 3 Israeli soldiers. So Israel simply invaded Lebanon, bombarded Lebanon, and Lebanon basically bombarded Israel back. It was a complete disaster for Israel. And this war was actually is considered to be lost from the Israeli point of view. So that was also was actually on the main agenda, and so nobody was actually thinking about the Palestinian Authority too much, because ever since the second Intifada, which was still kind of like fading away, it was kind of like already understood that that there's no partner, okay? And this is why there was really, what was promoted was actually to get out of the territories from the Judea and Samaria for the exchange of absolutely nothing. And this way the Arabs don't have any grievances because we already gave them the territory. So what's the problem? Which is even a stupider idea than to give that land in exchange for peace. So this is stupid, and this is even more stupid. Anything that involves in giving up land, any kind of deal involving giving up land to the Arabs is a bad idea, is a bad deal. There's no way out of it. But anyhow, you need to understand that they were talking, the public was hardly even aware of that. And but there was also a war in Gaza during that time because Hamas was firing rockets against Israel, and Israel responded by invading Gaza, and for about maybe 2 weeks or something during December 2008, I think. Yes, 2008. Also, it ended in a one-sided ceasefire. Israel basically saw that it doesn't gain anything, so it stopped the war basically. So this prime minister was a failure. There was absolutely, beside bombing the Syrian nuclear facilities, that's the only good thing they did. And he was a corrupted prime minister, very corrupted. Everybody knew that he's corrupted. Because already from in 2000, one of the businessmen that actually incriminated Ariel Sharon, the prime minister, David Apple, he also incriminated Olmert. So we already know from 2000 that Ehud Olmert, there's something weird about him, that he is corrupted, right? But he was promoted. He is a former right-winger that promoted left-wing ideas. So he was guarded. The media, the left-wing media, guarded him and didn't say any bad word about him. You couldn't even say a bad word about him. You will be fired. So he actually could have done that. And yes, he offered Abu Mazen giving up on East Jerusalem, and also giving up on Jewish sovereignty over Jerusalem. I mean, the old city. Also, the issue was actually is that Olmert was not planning to give up the main settlement blocks, but the idea was to keep that, which is 1.1% of Judea and Samaria. It's only 1.1% of Judea and Samaria. And he wanted to keep that, keep those blocks because it's only 1.1% of the area. And in exchange to give the Arabs a portion from Israel or and about the same issue. And this is where they fall on those small numbers, on the exchange of what the Arabs gonna get in exchange of those. On this basically they couldn't, they failed. Olmert also even agreed to get to allow like 10,000, and some even say even 150,000 Arab refugees that were expelled in the War of Independence in 1948, 70 years ago, will be allowed to return to Israel from humanitarian point of view. So anyhow, he already agreed on everything with Abu Mazen, and for some reason Abu Mazen it was in September 2008 that Olmert actually came to him and gave him a map, and told him sign here, sign, and 2 days from now we're gonna go to the White House, we're gonna have peace. And Abu Mazen said no. He said he wanted to take the map and go and talk to his advisors. Olmert didn't allow him. He told him, sign here, and we have an agreement. So Olmert, you can say on his good side actually, that he was actually trying to get a deal on the time, because if we're already agreeing on everything, what's the problem? Fucking sign here. And he didn't sign. And on this little thing, the conversations between the two, which lasted 2 fucking years, were not continued for basically absolutely no reason. They could have continued. They could have met in the week afterwards. He could have brought his advisor and see the map. He didn't. And this is why I think that it was God himself intervening and making Abu Mazen being an asshole, and making Olmert being an asshole. And basically a few weeks afterwards, Olmert resigned from his post as a prime minister because he was charged with all sorts of accusation that he's corrupted, and he ended up going to jail. By the way, he went to jail for about maybe 2 years, something like this. He got out really easy, even though he's a corrupted. He's actually the only prime minister to actually sit in jail for real. So this just shows that the most corrupted and immoral prime minister that Israel ever had, he is the one that was willing to go all the way for and to create a Palestinian state. And Abu Mazen, being an idiot and a Nazi himself, basically said no. And I think it's God himself that made him say that, just like Pharaoh, that God strengthened the heart of Pharaoh, the same thing. And ever since then, even though they were meeting and there were negotiations, and the so-called Palestinians just make it even impossible. They condition the beginning of negotiations with Israeli acknowledgement of a Palestinian state in the 67 borders. What the fuck are you talking about? Condition the negotiation with that? Go fuck yourself. And this is why there will never be a Palestinian state, ever. And there shouldn't be a Palestinian state. And every time that they try to create a Palestinian state, just like in 47, when the UN actually gave them a state and they blew it up, because God doesn't want a Palestinian state. It's a Nazi state. There shouldn't be a state like this. Only the Jews are allowed to rule the land of Israel. Nobody else.